Hi there. Thank you for being here. My name is Vanessa Callison Burch, and this is a topic very dear to my heart. I first became a hospice volunteer about 20 years ago, and currently I work at Facebook as the product manager responsible for memorialization, which is how Facebook cares for the accounts of people who've passed away. And it is my absolute pleasure to introduce you to three people I admire tremendously. Frank and Roshi Joan and Ramdas are all beloved teachers who have been key people shaping contemplative, compassionate care for dying people for 40 years? Decades.
More, I'm embarrassed to say.
More than 40 years. Frank started the first Buddhist hospice in America in the 1980s here in San Francisco, caring for people during the height of the AIDS crisis. And currently he runs the Metta Institute. Roshi Joan has a book and a program called Being with Dying and has trained thousands of clinicians. Ramdas, yeah. Ramdas helped start the first Center for Conscious Dying, and he's the author of a number of books. There's Be Here Now, and there's also a title that I love called Still Here, Embracing Aging, Changing, and Dying. So to get us started, the title of this conversation is Death as an Advisor to Life, and I'd love to hear, what does that phrase evoke for you?
So, thanks, Vanessa. And Frank, it's so wonderful being with you again. And RD. We're up here looking at a monitor of Ramdas. So if you wonder what we're doing by putting our attention, right before us, it's because I don't want to say our old friend because I don't want to insult you too much. But anyway, Frank and RD and I have stirred the waters of life and death for many decades. So actually, Meng and Cindy just walked by and I made a joke. I said, I think we should have called this session The Joy of Death. Hi, RD. Yeah. But anyway, just to touch into that question, I was remembering some words from the Mahabharata where Yudhishthira is asked, what is the most wondrous thing in the world? And Yudhishthira replied, the most wondrous thing in the world is that all around us, people can be dying, and we don't realize it can happen to us. So I feel that when Steve Jobs began to die before our very eyes, and when Sheryl Sandberg lost her husband, just in an instant, like that, like a bolt, and her outpouring of grief on Facebook was an incredible service to literally millions of people. And it moved me. I read her words again last night as I was sitting and just kind of gathering my feeling around what this afternoon would bring us. Because in a certain way, the world of technology, the World Wide Web, has a sort of, at a level of content, it manifests the truth of impermanence in a really extraordinary way. But it also has the aspect of you never quite die if you're on the web. If you know what I mean, you're sort of stuck in cyberspace in a kind of bardo world for all eternity, apparently, if I am to believe Google. So one of the questions for me is how we actually open ourselves to what the world of technology, what the World Wide Web, what also extending our consciousness through various devices, extending our mind through various devices, and also how this affects our own perception of our mortality and immortality. So, I don't have any answers, but as somebody who has been in this field since 1970, RD has been there for even longer. And Ram Dass and I, of course, also have the experience of psychedelics as part of our history. And in this earlier session today, it was not only the joy of death, thank you, Meng, but it was also a really fascinating presentation after Meng's on extending the mind through technology. One of the questions I have is how can the truth of our physical mortality teach us about how we manifest in our technology, how we manifest in the web, and how it can also be recursive or reflexive, how it's going to actually change how we die. I mean, we'll die. That's one thing we have in common. But how will the connection with this technology and also, the great domain called cyberspace change how we die? Frank, I'd love to ask you, and then let's hear from...
Well, one of the great joys of being with Roshi, is being friends with all these years, is that I get to sit next to her brilliant mind, and it always kind of stimulates me. It's great. I mean, I want to speak a little more personally, I think, in a way about it, though. I mean, for me, life and death are a package deal, yeah? It's like booking a cruise, You don't get one without the other, yeah? Nobody is getting out of here alive. Nobody is getting out of here alive. Maybe today, but... in Japanese Zen, there's a word, shoji, and it's one word that includes birth and death. There's a little hyphen in the middle, right? So the only thing that really separates birth from death is a small little thin line, yeah? So for me, that's really important to keep in mind as I live my life. It's an absurd gamble to wait until the time of our death to learn the lessons that it has to teach us. I mean, to imagine that at the time of our death, we will have the physical strength, the emotional stability, the mental clarity to do the work of a lifetime is ridiculous. And so it behooves us to do this work now, to practice now, not to wait for some other time. If there's somebody you love, tell them you love them. Don't wait for some other time. Yeah? When we keep death really close at hand, I think, at our fingertips, what it reminds us of is that this is a precarious life, absolutely precarious. And because it's so precarious, it's also precious. It's so precious, and so we don't want to waste a moment of it. We want to jump into our life with both feet. It isn't about getting all the goodies. It isn't about that. It's about stepping fully and completely into this life. Yeah? When we hold death very close at hand, we don't take ourselves so seriously. We don't hold on so tightly. And I think we let go a little more easily. And I think this engenders a certain way that where we can be kinder to one another. When we know that we're all in the boat together, well, then the way we are with each other makes a difference. Yeah? And when we forget, when we put death at some other time, off at some other time, we get lost in self-gratification, this pursuit of self-gratification all the time. So for me, death is not something at the end of the road. It's in the marrow of our bones. It's in the marrow of this moment, yeah? And we want to turn toward that experience to show us again what it is that has meaning and value in this life, yeah? So for me, the way in which death brings us alive. Death brings us alive, yeah? And a life that doesn't include death, well, it's only half a life, yeah? Only half a life. So that's my thought. But I want to go to the master and see what
Baba.
Ramdas. How does death help us be alive?
Well, death is a moment. How you spend your life in each moment is the rehearsal for death. It's called Be Here Now. It's your thoughts this moment, just this moment, this moment, just this moment. In fact, you delve into this moment It's all there is. It's all there is. In calming the monkey of the mind, the past and the future are your mind. Are your mind. But here we are. Here we are. And then I'd like to say what Franco said. You get into love.
Uh-oh.
frozen the Skype for a moment. There we go. You're back. Ramdas, say it again.
Reincarnated.
Ramdas, what about
Yeah.
19 years now you've been in that wheelchair after the stroke? You're 80-something now. You're old.
Yeah.
So you're...
Good, really old.
Yeah, really, really old. So,
Good bottle of wine.
a fine vintage, I would say. So as you come closer now, you know you're coming closer. What's it like coming closer to death for you?
Well, after all, all the studying I've done, that's somebody that those deaths. But when I come to my death,
Yeah.
today, I wanted to think of the people that shared the stage, and some of them have died, and all died like Stephen Levine.
Yeah, Stephen just died.
And Wayne
Dyer.
Yeah.
Dyer. And and they'd all died on ages way, way back.
Mm-hmm.
I'm flying. It's like I'm flying alone.
Oh. No,
And
there are few
now-
of us flying with you.
And I've read a lot of literature from they are all by people who have died through operations or something,
Like near-death experiences.
near-death experiences. And I put together my version of what's going to happen. And and it's comforting. It's comforting.
Uh-huh.
You meet your soul pod. People who have been of lifetimes, they've been with you, and they ask you, what was your incarnation like? And the sharing of the consciousness, it's beautiful. And then a particularly bright light peers, they're all only bright light is your guru or your your guide or your something. And he, the guide has information about your incarnations. Should I stop?
No.
That's what Frank was asking me, and I said, no, don't stop.
No, keep going. You're on a roll. So this is the image that you have. The soul pod, the guides, the
Yes.
gurus will be there to meet you.
And yeah, and they're all friendly and oh boy, it's and not only that, but it's all souls, and souls love one another. Souls love one another, and they it's just like air for us. Love in that boy, oh boy, oh boy.
Boy, oh boy.
And wow.
Wow.
And all I can say, and I have a friend, Emmanuel, who's a spirit. He said, I said, I have to tell people about death. And what should I say, Emmanuel? And he said, Dave, death is safe. Death is safe. And then the other, he said, it's like taking off a tight shoe.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Thank you, Ramdas.
Good.
I think for many of us, we start to think about death when someone close to us becomes seriously ill or is dying. And I was hoping you could share some advice and guidance with us on how to hold space for someone that we care about when they're seriously ill or dying. You wanna?
Yeah, I was just about 10 days ago, I had the privilege of sitting with a close friend who was dying of stage 4 ovarian cancer. And it was it was a journey with her of 8 years. She broke every rule in the book in a certain way. She somehow kept surviving and living and giving. And, you know, when you were talking about relationship, and for me, she really captured the incredible value of generosity, because her whole life was based on, you know, how much can I give? And so I sat with her the day before she died. I flew into Medford and then was taken down to Shasta and went into the house. And she and I had walked many times in the Himalayas. Again, with that sort of heart of just amazing generosity. But there she was in a situation of active dying and really in between worlds. She was really, the veil was so thin. And I realized that what was calling me was just to drop into the space, to do absolutely nothing, but to be there in love. And neither in grief nor in fear, but really with that kind of heart which is very unfiltered, open, filled with appreciation, internally recalling all of the good deeds that I could remember that she was responsible for. And that it was a privilege to sit with her and not to fuss. Yeah. And then in that interworld, and that that look, Frank, because you have seen it so many times, and you too, Vanessa, and also Ram Dass, she came out and her arms reached up, and then she said, Roshi, Roshi. And then I felt I could actually draw into her present moment, if you will, by holding her. But that it was important to hold in a certain way her liberated consciousness without attaching to the body. And then there was that moment of recognition. Yeah.
When we're teaching together, you often speak about giving no fear.
Yeah.
Would you say something about that?
Frank, I feel like that sensibility comes because, and you know it, and RD and Vanessa know it, because one is we've borne witness to come alongside the dying process for so long. We see death as inevitable, but I loved what you said. It's
package deal.
It's just a package deal. And for me, giving no fear is getting down with reality, just being with the truth of what is. But I think there's also something else, and it has to do with deep appreciation. And you said it, and Vanessa, I know your work touches on this, how we turn toward life. And understand how just this moment, being with you, my old friend RD, and Vanessa, and Frank, and all of you, how precious this moment is, and we don't know what the next moment will give us. And to be in an undistracted state, that is, for me, the gift that allows you to be free of fear, but to be right in the moment as it is.
Yeah, I'm thinking about how in the last several decades, we have made death into a technological phenomenon. We've so over-professionalized it, made it so difficult, that in a way we've forgotten how natural it is. How did we take this thing, this incredibly beautiful, intimate exchange between family member and other family member, or friend and friend, or loved one to loved one. How did we take that intimate experience and turn it into a duty or an obligation?
Or a business.
Or a business. A technological phenomenon. And I think in the process of that, we've become scared. We've forgotten what we know. And so we have an opportunity at gatherings like this to remember, to recall that this is in our bones. We know how to do this. We can have confidence in our kindness. We can have confidence in our ability to embrace the suffering of another human being as our own. We can do that. Death is not simply a medical event.
No.
It's much more than that. For me, it's much more about relationships, as you were just saying. The relationship between myself and the loved one, with death itself, with suffering, with God or whatever image of ultimate kindness I hold. And that relationship, for me, it's characterized by three things. The first is, when I'm dying, I want mastery. I want somebody who knows what the hell they're doing to be with me. I want my pain well managed. I want my symptoms taken care of. I want mastery. I want somebody who knows what they're doing. But that won't be enough. That won't be enough. I need somebody who's comfortable in the territory of meaning with me, who can help me discover what has meaning and value and purpose in this life. That's really important to me. But even there's some juncture, and our deacons speak about this better than I, where meaning falls away, where everybody's still talking to Grandma about Coney Island and the music that she used to love, and Grandma's turned in another direction. She's headed into the territory of mystery. This is the land of unanswerable questions, where the best we can do, and the most important thing for us to do, is to bear witness, to stay present in the land of unanswerable questions. Yeah? And that's where the no fear that you're speaking about is so essential, right? It's that what lets us stay present in territory where we've never been before. Yeah?
And you
So
know,
all of those, mastery, meaning, and mystery. I want all three M&Ms at my bedside.
well, good luck, Frank.
Well, that's why I've been cultivating our friendship for so many years.
And we're in a race in the, to the very end together. Both of us winning. Well, in the event that mastery isn't there, and in the event that meaning is not being, if you will, evoked from us, and mystery is not necessarily available, I mean, one of the things that we're doing here in this gathering, and that is so much a part of Baba's life, is how do we develop the quality of heart and mind that no matter what kind of shit is going down,
Yep.
we can still be present. And that is really essential, I feel.
Very essential in dying.
Is
There's
there,
lot of
is there a
shit.
fourth
Lot of
M, for example? Yeah. Because we don't know what we're going to be given. We could be given incredible incompetence. And if we're given incredible incompetence, for example, in terms of the caregivers who are around us or the conditions that we find ourselves in, how do we somehow maintain that quality of clear heart, clear mind? How do we realize the nature of our mind in this moment of being on a threshold between life and death? Yeah. That's kind of an equation. That's sort of, it could be that the fourth M is mindfulness of sorts. Mastery, meaning, mystery, and mindfulness. Does that work?
Yeah.
So you get 4 M's out of that, 4 M&Ms.
More M&Ms I can have, the happier I am.
Yeah.
I want to hear from Ramdas about what's helpful for you. You want to ask?
Yes, Ramdas, do you have some advice for us on how to be with people when they're very ill or dying?
Well, I used to say that we have to be a loving rock.
Oh, a loving rock. Yeah.
So you're a rock because they can push against you, and
That's great.
they feel confident, and that comes from you having done sadhana in your life.
Yeah.
That means Roshi, this is Metta, soul stuff.
Right, that's all right.
I know that if you have identified with your soul, then you don't get frightened in the in death, somebody's death. And because if I see death, the first half is, doctor, save me. And then the second one is like Steve Jobs. Wow. That's what he said. Wow. And that to be a person, be able to work with that wow, not just keeping them alive.
Yeah. Beautiful. Wow.
We have about 10 minutes left, and I thought, in the spirit of Wisdom 2.0, I'd really like to bring the conversation to the online world.
Yeah.
So perhaps you could talk for a few minutes about how we can extend that same compassionate presence to people that we love in times of serious illness and dying through technology.
Frank?
Yeah.
Well, I think that, a few years ago, I had a serious heart attack. I was teaching a program on compassion for docs and nurses, and I had a heart attack in the middle of it. I was in the middle of a dialogue with Ram Dass, just like this. And anyway, I went through triple bypass surgery, a big deal, but one of the things that happened at the end of that was that we set up a Caring Bridge site. It's like Vanessa's created this incredible site called What Matters Most, which is brilliant. And maybe we'll get to talk about that. But my dear wife set up a Caring Bridge site. So that meant there was a whole community of people that could, first of all, know about what was going on for me, but also they could send me their love. And I can't possibly express to you what a difference that made in my life. All of that love coming to me. I couldn't take it in, actually. My wife would read me one or two little, emails from people or postings from people. It was a beautiful way to feel supported and accompanied through a life-threatening illness. So that's just one simple one. Ram Dass regularly counsels people through Skype who are in their final hours of life. That's amazing. It's amazing that we can do this. There's brilliant apps out there. For Elders is a great one, lots of helping hands. This is another great app. I'm advocating for a national online directory of advanced directives so that everybody who has an advanced directive, any hospital, any medical center that they come into contact with, have access to that information so that people aren't mistreated around the end of their life. So these are just some of the things that I can, some of the possibilities that are out there around online work that I think are fantastic, But what do you think?
Well, for me, it's in this moment. It's just so precious being able to have a conversation with you in Hawaii, brought into the room with 1,000 people, and here we are. And it feels so real and intimate. Yeah.
Wow. Boy, I'm so grateful to technology that I can be at this conference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've extended your life and your teachings as a lived experience through technology. Almost every day you're Skyping with somebody in Poland or Croatia or here in the States or South America. So you've created a global Sangha that is so nourished by the journey that you've taken as a person who was, dropped in to being super stroked. And we've watched your healing process where there's another kind of stroking going on.
It is.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Soul stroking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
My stroke is just grace.
yeah.
The stroke called me in the side. I could call it because I couldn't play golf. I couldn't play me cello. I can all those things I did. I couldn't anything. But now I can only go inside. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ram Dass, in our last bit of time here, I think many people in the audience would be really grateful if you would lead us in a meditation.
Get comfortable in your chair. Notice your breathing. Breathing out, and breathing in. I'm going to give you a secret name. I am loving awareness. I am loving awareness. Repeat this. I am loving awareness. 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 I am loving. I am loving. Loving awareness is your spiritual self. It starts in the heart, not from the mind. Feel in your heart space. Feel loving awareness. Wow.
Thank you all so very much for
Oh,
being together
Vanessa,
and being
thank
with
you.
all of us.
Let's say about getting together.
Yeah, I know we didn't have time for Q&A, but I imagine a lot of you do have questions that you'd love to ask this group. And Frank generously offered we can meet in the back of the hallway if anyone wants to talk when we're all done. So we'll be out there in just a few minutes.
The tables are and things?
Yeah,
Just out here,
near
you
the
go out the
tables.
door and turn right. There are tables. We'll visit there if you want.
And then it's our custom at the end of a practice session to dedicate the merit. And whatever merit that has arisen here, whatever moment of peace, of wisdom, of coming home that we've experienced, may it nourish beings in all realms.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ramdas. Aloha and mahalo.
Thank you, Ramdas. Thank you, Ramdas.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ramdas.
Being with dying and has trained thousands of clinicians. Ram Dass. Yeah. Ram Dass helped start the first Center for Conscious Dying, and he's the author of a number of books. There's Be Here Now, and there's also a title that I love called Still Here, Embracing Aging, Changing, and Dying. So to get us started, the title of this conversation is Death as an Advisor to Life. And I'd love to hear, what does that phrase evoke for you?
So, thanks, Vanessa. And Frank, it's so wonderful being with you again. And RD. We're up here looking at a monitor of Ram Dass. So if you wonder what we're doing by putting our attention, right before us, it's because I don't want to say our old friend, because I don't want to insult you too much. But anyway, Frank and RD and I have stirred the waters of life and death for many decades. And when Sheryl Sandberg lost her husband, just in an instant, like that, like a bolt, and her outpouring of grief on Facebook was an incredible service to literally millions of people. And it moved me. I read her words again last night as I was sitting and just kind of gathering my feeling around, what this afternoon would bring us. Because in a certain way, the world of technology, the World Wide Web, has a sort of, at a level of content, it manifests the truth of impermanence in a really extraordinary way. So actually, Meng and Cindy just walked by, and I made a joke. I said, I think we should have called this session The Joy of Death. Hi, RD. Yeah. But anyway, just to touch into that question, I was remembering some words from the Mahabharata where Yudhishthira is asked, what is the most wondrous thing in the world? And Yudhishthira replied, the most wondrous thing in the world is that all around us, people can be dying, and we don't realize it can happen to us. So I feel that when Steve Jobs began to die before our very eyes,
Hi there. Thank you for being here. My name is Vanessa Callison Burch, and this is a topic very dear to my heart. I first became a hospice volunteer about 20 years ago, and currently I work at Facebook as the product manager responsible for memorialization, which is how Facebook cares for the accounts of people who've passed away. And it is my absolute pleasure to introduce you to three people I admire tremendously. Frank and Roshi Joan and Ramdas are all beloved teachers who have been key people shaping contemplative, compassionate care for dying people for 40 years? Decades.
more, I'm embarrassed to say.
More than 40 years. Frank started the first Buddhist hospice in America in the 1980s here in San Francisco, caring for people during the height of the AIDS crisis. And currently he runs the Metta Institute. Roshi Joan has a book and a program called
But it also has the aspect of you never quite die if you're on the web. If you know what I mean, like, you're sort of stuck in cyberspace in a kind of bardo world for all eternity, apparently, if I am to believe Google. So one of the questions for me is how we actually open ourselves to what the world of technology, what the World Wide Web, what also extending our consciousness through various devices, extending our mind through various devices, and also how this affects our own perception of our mortality and immortality. So, I don't have any answers, but as somebody who has been in this field since 1970, RD has been there for even longer. And